Remember when summer used to feel endless? Back when you were a kid, the days stretched out like they had no end. One day could feel like a week. You'd count down to your birthday with excitement and impatience, and it always felt like forever. Everything was new. Everything was alive. Time moved, slowly. But now, you blink, and suddenly it's December again. Didn't we just set New Year's resolutions? Didn't we just put away the Halloween decorations? How is it that months are flying by like days and weeks vanish without a trace? It's not just you. This strange, eerie feeling that time is accelerating is something almost every adult experiences. You feel like you're chasing the days, like your life is rushing past you, and you can't quite hold on to it. So what's really going on? Here's the twist. Time isn't speeding up. You're just measuring it wrong. And over a century ago, a French philosopher named Henri Bergson figured it out. While the world became obsessed with clocks, calendars, and deadlines, tools designed to control and organize, Bergson proposed something radically different. He said that real time isn't found on a watch. It isn't counted in hours or minutes. Real time, what Bergson called la durée, lives in your memories, your emotions, your experiences. That's why 5 minutes of waiting in line feels like an eternity, but an hour laughing with friends disappears in a flash. Because time, as you feel it, doesn't follow the rules of the clock. It follows the rhythm of your life. In this video, we'll dive deep into this mind-bending idea. We'll explore why childhood feels long and adulthood feels like a fast-forward reel. We'll uncover the science and psychology behind why time seems to shrink as we grow older. And most importantly, we'll ask the question that matters most. How can we take time back? How can we stretch our perception, reclaim our moments, and start truly living again? Not just counting days on a calendar? Because if it feels like the years are slipping through your fingers, maybe they are. But what if you could catch them? Let's find out together. Let's begin with the time you know. The kind that lives on your phone, on your calendar, on the ticking hands of a wall clock. We call it clock time. It's clean. It's precise. It slices your day into hours, minutes, and seconds. Measurable, standardized, universal. This is the time that governs your meetings, your deadlines, your alarms. The kind of time that runs schools, airports, governments, entire civilizations. And it's not wrong. In fact, it's incredibly useful. Without it, society would descend into chaos. But here's the thing. Clock time isn't real, at least not in the way you live it. Because the truth is, time doesn't feel like that. It doesn't move forward at a constant pace. It bends, it stretches, it disappears, it lingers. There's a different kind of time, one that Henri Bergson believed was far more important. He called it la durée. Translated simply, it means duration, but it goes far beyond minutes on a clock. Bergson said this is the time you feel, the time you experience. It's not outside of you. It lives within you. Think about it. 5 minutes waiting in a boring meeting can feel like an hour. But 5 minutes laughing uncontrollably with your best friend? Gone in an instant. Why? Because your experience of time depends entirely on how engaged you are in the moment. In Bergson's eyes, clock time was an illusion, a tool we invented to measure the world. But lived time? That was reality. It was the flowing, chaotic, deeply personal current of your consciousness. And this idea, it put him on a collision course with one of the greatest minds in history, Albert Einstein. Einstein treated time as a physical dimension, something that could be calculated, charted, even bent under gravity. His theory of relativity changed physics forever. For him, time was part of the fabric of the universe, objective, unfeeling, scientific. But Bergson argued, that kind of time ignores the human heart. He believed that science had become so obsessed with measuring time, it had forgotten how to feel it. He said we've become slaves to seconds, prisoners to productivity. And in doing so, we've lost touch with the time that really matters, the kind that makes you feel alive. So, which time are you living by? The cold, relentless ticks of the clock? Or the warm, unpredictable pulse of your own experience? Because choosing between them, might just change how you live the rest of your life. So if time itself isn't changing, then why does it feel like it's speeding up with every passing year? Why does childhood feel like a slow-motion dream, while adulthood feels like a high-speed train you can't get off of? The answer lies not in time, but in your brain. Let's start with something called the proportional theory. It's a simple but powerful concept. When you're 10 years old, a single year is 10% of your entire life. That's huge. It's a massive slice of your personal timeline. But when you're 50, that same year is just 2% of your life. It's a sliver, a blink. So psychologically, each year feels smaller, like it takes up less space. But that's only part of the story. The deeper truth has to do with how your brain records time. You see, your mind doesn't track time the way a clock does. It doesn't remember every second. Instead, it creates mental bookmarks, snapshots of moments that felt new, emotional, or meaningful. These bookmarks become your memories, and your sense of time is built from them. Think about it. When you were a child, everything was new. Your first bike ride, your first day of school, your first heartbreak. Each one carved a vivid memory into your brain, a bookmark that anchored time. But as an adult, you fall into routine. You take the same route to work. You eat the same meals. You scroll through the same apps. You have fewer firsts, fewer surprises, fewer bookmarks. And when your brain doesn't have new moments to record, it starts to compress time. The days blur, the weeks fade, and before you know it, entire years collapse into a mental folder labeled, "Same old, same old." This is the cruel trick of adulthood. The more comfortable and efficient your life becomes, the faster it feels like it's passing you by. Bergson saw this as a tragedy of modern life, that our obsession with routine, productivity, and predictability was shrinking our lived experience of time. We were trading wonder for repetition, presence for efficiency, and science backs him up. Neuroscience shows that novelty, the experience of something unfamiliar, literally slows your perception of time. It forces your brain to pay attention, to encode, to remember. And the more memories you create, the longer life feels. So if your days are starting to feel shorter, if you're wondering where the months went, ask yourself this: when was the last time you did something for the first time? Because in the end, it's not the years that fly by, it's the unlived moments that vanish before we even notice they're gone. Let's dig deeper. If time isn't actually speeding up, and it's your brain doing the shrinking, then how exactly is it happening? There are three powerful psychological forces working against your perception of time. And the worst part? Most of us fall into all three without even noticing. Let's break them down. The first is the novelty effect. Your brain is a novelty addict. It craves the unfamiliar, the unexpected, the exciting. And when you experience something new, whether it's traveling to a new city, tasting a bizarre dish, or simply changing your daily routine, your brain goes into overdrive. It pays attention. It records the moment. It creates vivid memory snapshots. And when you look back on those moments, they feel fuller, more real. That's because your brain actually worked harder to encode them. There's even science to back this up. In one study, participants who listened to unfamiliar music perceived time as 20% longer than those who listened to something repetitive. Why? Because novelty slows down subjective time. It makes life feel longer. The second is the routine effect. Routine is efficient, but deadly for your perception of time. When your days look the same, your brain goes on autopilot. You stop noticing things. You stop recording details. Your brain basically says, "Nothing new here," and files the entire day into your memory as one blurry lump. That's why the first day at a new job feels eternal. Your brain is firing on all cylinders, taking in names, sounds, spaces, smells. But 6 months in, you're a zombie drifting through tasks without ever truly being present. Routine saves energy, but it steals moments. The third is memory compression, and this one is especially tricky. You don't perceive time in real time. Instead, you reconstruct it when you look back. Your brain skims through the highlights and skips the filler. So if your life lacks vivid moments, If it's all just emails, grocery trips, and scrolling, there's nothing to reconstruct. Your brain compresses it all into a single word. Meh. That's why a week in Tokyo feels like a chapter, while a week at your desk feels like a sentence. Your brain isn't broken, it's just bored. So what's the cost of these three effects? They don't just steal your minutes, they rob you of your sense of life. They turn your existence into a loop, predictable, fast, forgettable. But here's the good news. Once you understand these forces, you can begin to fight back. You can hack your perception of time. You can slow it down. You can reclaim your hours, your days, even your years. In the next part, we'll show you how. Because it turns out, you don't need more time. You just need to feel it again. What happens when two of the greatest minds of the 20th century clash over a single idea? Not money, not war, not even power. Time. In April 1922, the city of Paris was buzzing with anticipation. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Albert Einstein had arrived to deliver a lecture on his revolutionary theory of relativity, a theory that changed how we understand the universe itself. But waiting for him was a challenge he didn't expect. Henri Bergson, France's most celebrated philosopher, a man who didn't just study logic and language, but emotion, memory, and meaning. And unlike most, Bergson had no intention of bowing to Einstein's equations. Because while Einstein had reshaped the laws of physics, Bergson believed he had ignored the human soul. Einstein saw time as a fourth dimension, part of the cosmic fabric, flowing at different speeds depending on motion and gravity. In his universe, time could stretch and bend, but it was always measurable, always mathematical, always impersonal. Seconds were seconds, minutes were minutes. But Bergson, he had a different vision. He argued that this view of time, while useful for science, was meaningless to the people actually living it. You and me. He said Einstein's time was a corpse, a lifeless abstraction on a blackboard, a map with no color, a formula with no feeling. For Bergson, real time was messy, emotional, alive. It was your pulse racing during a first kiss. It was the weight of waiting for a call that never came. It was the blur of a perfect afternoon with friends, or the eternity of sitting alone in a hospital waiting room. He called it la durée, lived time. And in Bergson's world, this was the only time that truly mattered. Their debate was legendary. At one point, Bergson even criticized Einstein's famous twin paradox, where one twin ages slower by traveling through space at high speeds. Bergson asked, even if her body ages slower, wouldn't her consciousness still feel every moment? Einstein's response was icy. The time of the philosophers does not exist. And just like that, the line was drawn. Scientists sided with Einstein. Physicists embraced his equations. And Bergson's reputation, at least in the academic world, began to fade. But in another corner of the world, in the minds of artists, psychologists, writers, and everyday people, Bergson's idea of time lived on. Because for all the math in the world, no equation can explain what it means to feel a moment. No theory can measure the ache of nostalgia, the weight of grief, the joy of presence. So, who was right? Einstein gave us the tools to explore black holes. But Bergson reminded us why we look up at the stars in the first place. So now you know the truth. Time isn't your enemy. Your brain's autopilot is. It's not the years that are flying by. It's your perception that's shrinking. The good news? You have the tools to fight back. You don't need a time machine. You don't need a physics degree. All you need is to learn how to live again. Let's talk about how to do that. With 3 science-backed, Bergson-approved ways to stretch your time, reclaim your life, and make your days feel rich and full again. Hack number 1, chase novelty. Remember this, new experiences create mental timestamps. The more novel a moment is, the harder your brain works to encode it. That's why a week traveling in a foreign country feels longer than a month at your desk. Because your brain had to pay attention, it had to engage, it had to live. You don't have to climb Mount Everest. Just become a tourist in your own life. Try a new route to work. Visit a place you've never been. Order the weirdest thing on the menu. Learn something awkward, like a new language, a musical instrument, or a TikTok dance. It's not about success, it's about struggle, the kind that wakes your brain up. Hack number 2, be mindfully present. Your attention is your most valuable currency. When you're fully engaged in the moment, whether it's sipping coffee, walking in the rain, or talking to someone without looking at your phone, you're anchoring yourself in what Bergson called la durée. You're stepping out of clock time and into live time. Try this simple trick, the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Look around. Name 5 things you see. Touch 4 things you feel. Listen for 3 things you hear. Identify 2 things you smell, and focus on 1 thing you taste. That's it. 1 minute, full reset. When you're truly present, even the smallest moment becomes infinite. Hack number 3, break the routine. Predictability is the enemy of perception, so shake things up. Rearrange your furniture. Work from a cafe instead of your desk. Shower with the lights off. Eat dessert first. Take a reverse day where you do everything backward. Sing in the elevator. Ask a weird question. Say yes to something you'd usually decline. Bergson called this a rebellion against the tyranny of clock time. He believed that by disrupting our patterns, even in small ways, we could wake ourselves back up to life. And he was right. Because every time you confuse your brain, even a little, you stretch time. You don't need more hours, you need more intensity. The deeper you live each moment, the longer life will feel. Not in years, but in richness. Coming up next, Part 7, where we confront the modern tragedy of lost time and how to stop letting it slip through our fingers. Shall we continue?